I thought a couple years ago there was a burst of interest in wood turning. I thought a bunch of younger guys got in. Was I wrong about that? And now it's in a lull again?
Yeah, we had a bunch of young guys join the club, and they've kind of disappeared. We got one young girl, but we got a whole pile of senior members.
What I'm hearing, we've got a fellow locally that teaches a class at a art center, and he tells me that I asked him. I said, "You're probably the best recruiting tool we've got in the club, but we're not seeing a lot of new members." And he chalked it up to this millennial group of folks. I say millennial might be one of the other ABC groups, but they don't want to get stuff. They're paying for experiences, so they're taking a class in blacksmithing and ceramics and wood turning, and they'll come in there and take a class, but they're not going to become wood turners. They're just checking things out and moving on to another experience.
Holy smokes, huh?
I think you're going to find a lot of the younger people you're looking for at the maker spaces, and maybe Ken has some insight on that. We'll look at your piece in a minute, Bowman. You got a great conversation going here. Let's keep it going.
Oh, okay. I thought I'd save the time on the show. So, okay.
Well, I got nothing for you today, so it's all up to you guys. You know, this is show and tell starring you all. So if anybody's been holding back, now's your day.
Yeah,
I have
in
in the
some
shop.
cases, I'm in several different clubs, and all of them seem to be suffering from the same AI instant answers type uh, of mentality of mindset. It's
Do
like
you, do you
I'm in
ever
a
go?
pen turners group, and we have people that show up, post an intro message, and then the next question is, "How do I do this?" And one guy posted a message like that, and then 3 hours later he posted another message. Is anybody listening in here? It's like, yeah, but we're not sit on it.
What gets me the most is the people who post a badly lit picture of a piece of wood, and they say, "Can anybody help me identify what wood this is?" And if I'm feeling puckish and have the time, bother to have the time, I usually say, "Well, it's definitely tree wood,"
Yeah.
and I mean,
There was a
ridiculous.
there was a posting yesterday on one of the Facebook groups here, a Canadian group, where a fellow had bought a blank that was marked ash. So he turned a bowl, quite a nice bowl. It's obviously cherry. There's no way it's ash. And and he says, but it was marked ash, like,
Oh, yeah.
like
Duh.
So therefore it's ash.
honestly.
The
I
other
have to
question.
say though, when I joined the guild, and I was basically a country boy. I didn't know that much about hardwoods. In fact, when I got into turning, that was the first hardwoods I'd ever used. I learned more about woods than I could ever imagine when I joined our guild, and then got seriously into wood turning and exploring it. Though there's a lot to it.
The other question I have about this topic is how many how many of we old guys are still turning, or have an int or we just have an interest anymore from a past experience. I mean, that's another way to look at it. So,
Well, the guys on this screen are pretty much all active turners, I think. Am I right about that? Is there anybody on here right now who is just here looking and doesn't actually turn very often?
I'm a
How do
novice
you
setting
Greg
up
Hickman. Well,
shop.
you gave me good advice last week, Greg Hickman. So you're engaged in something artistic or creative.
depends how you define often.
Well,
yes,
you're just
indeed.
old, Mike. That's your thing, like me.
I know.
Uh, my days
We
are short, so I had other stuff I had to do this week, and so I didn't spend much time at the shop, or I did, but I was taking pictures of the archival stuff rather than working on the lathe.
we had
I
an
did a
Eli Avoceri demo on the weekend, which was phenomenal, and that's sort of got the inspiration juices flowing. So Now I got to put it into practice.
Well,
I did a survey of my viewers a while back and asked them about their how often they turned, and 13, I just saw this last night or I wouldn't have been able to remember. 13% had not turned anything in the last 12 months.
how many viewers are we talking about, Mike? How many viewers do you
Well,
have?
I don't know. I don't remember how many responses I got, but viewers. This is a community post on YouTube, so you don't get nearly as many views as you would a video. So it could very well have a high margin of error, but I might get 150 to 200 responses, which I feel like are somewhat representative, and only about 50% turned more than 10 items in the last 6 months.
Really? But all right, now on this, I'm going to just take a pause here because it's 10 o'clock. It's Lancaster Woodturners Coffee Hour number 254, May 22nd, 2025. I'm seeing 37 on screen right now, and I expect in the next 10 minutes it'll go up towards 40 or 50. Good morning, all y'all. It's May Day weekend coming up. There was a great conversation going on here about young turners and how active turners are, and I'm going to give the phone back to Mike to continue what you were saying or restart for.
And in terms of the age, there was I see very, very clear and accurate YouTube statistics on my population of my viewers. Oh gosh, it's something like 75% are 65 or older.
Well, do you think that's partly because turning not only takes time, it now takes money. It didn't used to cost anything to take up turning. You could get a lathe for a couple of $100, and tools were, sharpened files, for Christ's sake. Now everything is $100. You can't get anything,
I don't know. I
We're
think it's
talking
more the
about
mentality and interests of the younger folks. They're not interested in collecting things, which would include wood turnings that they turned, but they're more interested in traveling and they're more into getting experiences. And I think that's a tidal shift.
That certainly describes my grandchildren.
I think
Anybody else
so.
on this? We're talking about young turners, old turners, whether people are wood turners by aspiration, they only turn every month or two or once a year, and others who are in the shop every week if they possibly can, and every day if they can possibly can. I'm in the everyday camp when I can, but I can't all the time. How about the rest of you? Let's hear from other people.
It's funny, whenever we were looking for a new space, this is Ken from Nittany Valley Woodturners. Whenever we were looking for a new space, I was getting a lot of information. And one of the things that we got into was we were looking at going into a senior center and working with them. But when I talked to the people from AAW, they said an interesting fact. They said, what you're doing with staying with the maker space, which was a good idea for us, is we were getting with the younger turners. And what we were doing is we were planting the seed. And once you plant the seed, it may take a while for it to sprout, but sooner or later it's going to sprout. And just like me, I didn't begin turning till I was in my 50s, right? So, or maybe it was even 60s. So, but I turned earlier and the seed was in there, and that was one of the things I wanted to do. Excuse me.
Tell us more about the makerspace. You're one of the few I know who really is involved with the makerspace. Others have flirted with it, and we have some members who go, but I don't really know the story. I've never been to one.
Well, the makerspace, the one we go to is called the Rivet at Discovery Space, and it has a younger group that's called the Discovery Space, and then there's the makerspace, and they have all sorts of they have all sorts of equipment. They have welding, they have wood turning, they have computers, they do clay. There's all sorts of things that happen.
Do they have
what I see?
Do they have CNC machines and the ability to cast metal and things like that?
No casting, but they do have some what do you call those?
3D
The wood
printers?
burning. Yeah,
Laser.
they have laser cutters, and they can make their own parts and things like that. So it's quite a setup. and it's really been a good relationship with us because what we do, I think a lot of people just want to experience different things. The young people want to experience different things, like we were talking about, and so they do take our classes. And we have a time when we do pen classes all the time. That's pretty traditional. But we'll get nobody there, and then all of a sudden we'll have it full for like 3 sessions. It doesn't make any sense. It's just all of a sudden it happens.
Well, what's the
John, there's
population of
also
the Maker Center?
one.
Let me finish with Ken. And
Also
I'll
a
come to you,
makers.
Kevin.
There's also a makers works up in Reading. It's Goggle Works, and they do castings, they do woodworking, they do all kind of things.
Well, there's a full-blown woodworking shop at Goggle Works.
Right, right.
Yeah.
But they also do the casting works, and they do candles, they do just hundreds of things.
Well, do you have any sense, either one of you, of how many people participate in these places? Like
Enough to pay the bills. I know there's a club in Birmingham I demonstrated for. They were meeting in a maker space, and it tended to, you look around the folks that work in there, they tend to be younger folks, people that might live in apartments that were makers, but they didn't have their own space. So they're paying rent or a membership into like a community co-op workshop, and they've got it wasn't a trivial expense, but it was what they could do to be able to continue to be making stuff that they couldn't do in their apartment, for example.
It might also, if you added it up over a year, it might equal yours or my tool, machinery, and supplies budget anyhow.
It could be. It's just it's not cheaper, I don't think. It's just a different method. It's more of a rent not buy kind of situation, and it gives them an opportunity to do things that they otherwise couldn't do.
The Quad
Do
State,
they have storage space? Do they have storage space at the makerspace, or do they have to take their project in and out?
It probably varies on the makerspace, but I imagine most of them they've got limited storage because they've only got so much room, and as we know, rental square foot rental can be very expensive.
Yeah,
Well,
space is a big deal for the Rivet. They always want to bring in new equipment and new things, but they just don't have the space for everything they want to do. They don't even have any kind of place for storage but the projects, there's room for projects to stay over. So if it takes 2 weeks to make a bowl, we have a place to put a bowl for the next week.
the Quad State Bodgers meets at a makerspace in Cumberland, Maryland, and one of our members is employed by the makerspace, and he runs classes. Usually gets 1 to 3 people in a class, and he'll run 1 to 2 classes a week. We meet there once a month on a Saturday. We have the full run of the area. Again, no storage space per se. The makerspace has complete machine shop, a welding shop, our woodworking area. In the wood shop, we have a couple CNC machines. They have a print area. They do laser work, 3D printing, just about everything you can imagine. And if you, as an individual, want to come in off the street and use the equipment, you're certainly welcome to. In the wood shop, I don't know how the others run, but you have to take a preliminary safety instruction class before you can use the facility. The facility rents for $10 a day, or it's less than $100 a month. If you as a maker don't have the facility to produce something in mass production, even, you may rent their space and use their space to do your work that you're trying to sell.
So what hours is it open? And then that friend of yours, does he maintain machinery, or who does that?
Had some good questions that I'm not sure I can answer 100%. Dustin is the same age as Jerry and I, and he doesn't have to maintain. I don't think he keeps the shop orderly and runs the classes. The hours are, I believe, from 4 to 9. The facility is also used by, it's called Western Maryland Works, and they run regular credit classes through Allegheny College for machining, engineering, welding, and I'm not sure what the other classes are that they run. So,
John, I can answer some of the questions. We have a maker space here in Gainesville, which is University of Florida, and then a 4-year community college. So it's because it's a 501 nonprofit, they love to shuttle their older equipment, I guess, over to us. But older equipment, I bet you they have at least 8 3D printers, and it's all the tools that you've all mentioned before. There's 2 locations. There's one that's actually a storefront on 6th Street, and you can look it up. What we've done though, it is to save money. If you call it a maker space, you have to pay so much a month for the use of their name. So what we decided is just to call it Gainesville Hacker Space, and you could look it up and see what all the projects are. But we pay, or it used to be $35 a month. Now it's $50, but you could go in there 24/7. You get a key. I'm sorry, you get a code, and you can go in either of the 2 shops. And that allows you 3 a.m. Sunday morning. You feel like going, you can go. So that's just a few. I couldn't be happier to see this thing, and I've tried to participate. It's just a wonderful, wonderful thing. I know it's successful, but I don't know if that helps or not. But thanks, John.
Anybody else?
One thing you guys haven't talked about, I have a friend who's in a retirement home, and I'll tell you that shop is really equipped. I mean, because every guy that retires and that moves there has, like, they got recently the mustard lathe. I call it the mustard lathe, and I mean it's that caliber of gear they're getting in there. They got a saw stop and everything, and it's like a maker space for old guys. Now I guess the requirement is you have to live there. I think that's the requirement.
Yes,
You
it is.
can't work in it unless you're living there.
We have a number of members of our club who are often on the screen. Ron Sheehan, for particular, and Bob Gockenauer, both live in one that has an excellent shop. I was amazed when I visited there. As part of the architecture of the building, they built in industrial grade dust system with 6 and 8 inch wire welded steel ducts. I mean, they are not fooling around there. And their problem with machinery is they have too much machinery. I've seen one at another village around here. It was just packed with bandsaws. I mean, everybody brought a bandsaw, and it was like a whole room full of bandsaws. They could have had a bandsaw sale, and everybody wants to bring their own machine.
I was looking at the cost here for the rivet, and it's for 1-day access, it's $15. Monthly access is $40, and Maker Space Maker Plus membership is $85. You get Maker membership plus a whole bunch of other things. So depending on what you do, it's not cheap, but the equipment's all there. It's well maintained. They have a crew that's always doing it, always working on it.
Hey, Ken,
Yeah.
do you also have to rent the machines when you use them? Because I know the Columbus one, it's like you said, it's 40, $50 a month, but you have to pay by the hour for the machines you use.
No, that's full membership. That's with access to machines, and even they'll have somebody come help you, but you have to have a clearance class. I think it's a $7 or $10 clearance class for large equipment. So you get clearance to do all the machines that are in the wood shop for the clearance class.
Just a couple of comments. One comment would be that years ago, shop became tech ed, and tech ed became a lot of production type of stuff. And for liability purposes, the lathes disappeared. So children or kids were not getting access to some of this stuff. Also, the price of housing right now, a lot of people, young couples, both of them are working and they're buying like townhouses and stuff like that in the bigger cities because they are very nice and they're affordable, but there's no room for shops or anything like that. So they if they are interested in something like that, that they don't have the room to put anything in, then I would think that these maker shops are an ideal situation for many of them.
Yeah, John, the maker shop that the Quad State Boisers work in is gigantic, and it was grant funded by two agencies. And the man who's in our club, Dustin, is a retired art professor and the world's champion dumpster diver. And so he keeps things looking good. I mean, they produce nice stuff in their small classes. And our club, well, Gerald negotiated when the building was still under construction, so we got favored treatment. But we pretty much provide the wood turning equipment and preside over it. It's worked very well for us. We had been in many different places over the years. You know, I'm a charter member of it, and I can't even count how many shops we had been in. And you know, people die, and we lose the space, or uh, things change. But we hope we can keep this one. This is a good one, and it's helped our attendance too. Uh, and it's advertised. So we're pretty happy with the makerspace.
And
And a lot of thanks to Gerald.
one thing we're going to do here in the month of June is for our meeting, instead of just a demonstration, we're going to, and our meetings usually last from 9 until 11, 11:30, something like that. We're going to run from 9 until 3. It's going to be an open house, a wood turning extravaganza. It'll be advertised in the local paper, on the radio, and we're inviting all people 16 and older to attend. And we'll have, I would say, somewhere between 15 and 20 lathes set up, and there'll be like a different station. If you want to learn to make a snowman, you can go to this lathe. If you want to make a Christmas tree, you go to this lathe. You want to do for Mike's Mike Peace there, his little vases with cattails. We're going to do all kind of different things, and bowl turning, just a little bit of everything, and hopefully we'll get a good turnout. We don't know.
Well, Gerald, in a situation like that, how do you, we have 6 or 7 lathes at our club shop, and it's a constant problem having everything you need at each lathe. Stuff moves around, it's getting control of it has been a big project, and it's really taken, one of the guys is stepping up and getting a hold of it now, but it's been a while. How do you do that? What happens if in your situation, wait a minute, I forgot my live center, or whatever?
The makerspace is pretty well equipped. They have 8 lathes. I have several small lathes, mini lathes that I'm going to bring. One of the other gentlemen has even more than I have, and he's going to bring a number of lathes. So we're going to be pretty close to 20 lathes, I think. Aaron, the other gentleman, and myself will bring our own tooling as much as we remember to bring. And of course, like you say, sometimes you forget something. But if in case we forget to bring a particular thing, there are other avenues there that can be used in the shop.
Are they pretty much all 1 inch by 1/8 spindles, I'm guessing?
The majority are. We do have a Harvey, we have a Powermatic, and I think those are both 1 1/4/8.
Anybody else on this?
How do you deal with the question of liability? Like an older guy in the shop at 3 on Sunday morning sounds like a huge liability.
Yeah, we don't do that. That was one of the other gentlemen, I think it was Carl, was saying that they can do that, but we don't. We have someone on staff there.
But legally, how's the liability defined? Do you have to sign up and sign off your liability, or how does it work to be a member?
I really don't know. I'm sure there is some type of a sign-off sheet, and the college has liability insurance.
With ours, liability is completely with the makerspace. unless we borrow one of their lathes and take it off site or something like that. So anything that's in their shop is pretty much their liability, as long as people have their clearance class. And it's a requirement for them to use any of the lathes without the clearance class.
So what I'm hearing, to sum this up just for a second, is that we moan sometimes about we're all old guys and there's no young people. Well, the young people are in these things like maker spaces, and they don't have their own shops, and they don't stay in one craft necessarily. They float around and they make stuff and they fool around and they do what they want, and that's where the new turners are probably going to come from, and that's certainly where the bubble and seethe is. We have some of that in our club, but it's nothing like you guys are describing.
We have two spaces in Calgary that are the equivalent of maker spaces, and I've been to one of them briefly, and I've talked to people that have gone to them, and some young turners, and predominantly the complaint is just that these particular two spaces, in their opinion, are not well run, in that there's, nobody really maintains the equipment. The tools aren't sharp. People they leave a mess. There's just as much stuff stored as there is, things set up. So you might think you're going to go there to use a lathe, and then you get there and you find that there's a bunch of stuff piled on it or around it, and it's not really accessible. So that seems to be one of the bigger challenges, is they really need staff that are knowledgeable about all the tools and equipment so they can keep things properly maintained.
Yeah, we have two people that shuttle back and forth. As we mentioned, Dustin is one of them, and Gary Taylor is the other one. Gary is the welding instructor there at the makerspace, and also runs classes in the wood shop. And he's also an instructor at the Career Center, teaching building trades.
Good morning. My name is Michael Grinney. I'm with the Northeast Florida Woodturners Association. And yeah, you guys are all right. I mean, you see a lot of gray hair whenever you go to a symposium or in your own club. And I thought, how many of us have just invited someone to come into your shop and see if you can get them to catch the bug? There you go. I see your hands up. It's these makers shops are wonderful, but they're few and far between. So sometimes you can't find one within 100 miles. So, just invite somebody into your shop. It's maybe a small effort, but if we keep building on this and get some new blood into the organization, because I think our craft needs younger people. It really does.
It's
I've
easier.
invited a lot of people to come to my shop, but the one thing that I worry about is they come to my shop and they immediately get intimidated because there's sawdust a foot deep everywhere, and I've got probably $25,000 or $30,000 worth of jigs and machinery and stuff that I've accumulated over 50 years, and they love the idea, but it scares the hell out of them because they look back at the room they have and it ain't gonna happen.
I have posted invitations in my neighborhood's website on multiple occasions, neighborhood of 500 homes, and I'd say, hey, free introductory lessons to members of our neighborhood. Just give me a call. Crickets. Nothing.
Over here.
I've had one neighbor took me up on it one summer. He brought his son over for an experience for his son who was a senior in high school, but nothing. It just falls on deaf ears after multiple tries.
John Smith. Yeah, over here, just recently, I've got two young people doing what's known as the Duke of Edinburgh's Award. And they have to go through bronze, silver, and gold. And the two people are in their 14 years plus, and they've done their bronze and they're now both onto their silver. And I've got a third young girl who is Asperger's, and she is coming on in leaps and bounds, which surprised me because she is keeping everything she's told better than I anticipated she would. So over here, there is an incentive, as I say, it's the Duke of Edinburgh Award, and they can get presented with their medals by Prince William. No, it's not. Now it's somebody else. He changed.
No,
So it's something that can happen over here. We can have young children into the workshop and go from there. And there's another guy who actually has something from the age, the English version of the GBW, Great British Woodturners, which is I've forgotten the name, but I seem to be losing them today, is where they give out bursaries to young people to go to top turners, and the bursaries and the AWG, or the GBW rather, pay for those bursaries to teach and modulate those young children. And
do you have anything? Do you have anything like maker spaces in England?
Only men's sheds.
Men's sheds, and what are
Yeah,
they?
they started out in Australia. I think they moved to England and are now in Canada. It's where a lot of people haven't got room in their houses, or they live in flats, and they go into these workshops and they get machinery, thickness planers, lathes, bandsaws, all this type of thing, and they make things. The local ones even make benches to go in the parks.
Jeff, and explanation of that in the chat.
I saw that go by in the chat. Yeah, Jeff Atkinson looked one of the told us about that. I'm seeing 52 on board here right now. How about what's going on in Germany, Kai? Are there anything like maker spaces there or community spaces?
Yes, there are maker spaces in Germany, but I have to admit I haven't visited any of them, so I can't say a lot about maker spaces. But they are there, and I don't know in how far wood turning plays a role in maker spaces. I'll have to find out. I'll Google it, see whether I can find something and report maybe next time.
Okay, thank you, Kai.
I would have to warn you, Kai, once you go there, you're going to get stuck. You're going to end up training there. You be careful.
Maybe.
I can relate to you not going to a makerspace, you being an educator and teaching the trades, and myself the same. We had access to all the facilities at our school, so that just wasn't necessary for us to go to a makerspace. And I want to follow up on something that Don said. I taught several years at a collegiate area and in a shop, and I will have to say that the young women, girls in the class were much more receptive to learning than the guys were.
All right. Well, that's very good discussion. Thank you all. Let's go to the regular order of business now. Who'd like to show us work today? I see Bowman is always ready. Anybody else?
I thought Don was too.
Yeah, Don, you got some stuff to show?
Yes, I have. Last week, Bert showed, 2 weeks ago, Bert showed us a box. And last week, I made one before, and I showed it to Bert last week, and it's an oval box. Now, this was a trial piece that I did, and it's shaped so light. So after I made that, and this one I coloured because it's full of...
Hold it up again. Let's have a little more of a better look at that.
I'll show you another one in a minute, which is bigger.
Okay, that's all right. Now open it up again. You were just a little quick. We didn't really get a good look at what's going on in there. Okay, and the bottom and top outside? Very okay.
Now,
Very
the colouring's only been done because it's full of woodworm, and I wanted to try and see what it looked like. So I spoke to Bert last week, and I went out and I made another one.
And so tell us again, does that, talk about it. What did you do?
Yeah, right. I'm going to go and screen share now because I've got some photographs to show. And while I'm doing this, I'm talking, please do not take any notice of the angle of the tools that I'm using, because I was taking the photographs myself, and in doing so, now can I get full screen?
Yeah, you have it.
I only had 10 seconds to get to the lathe to be able to take the photographs. So it was also a piece that was one of your magazines by Art Leisman, who made one of these as a goblet. But this is a box. So what we've got is a 4-inch cube made up of two 1.5-inch thick by 4-inch by 6-inch pieces of hardwood. In this case, it was beech, with 2 pieces of softwood. Now you can use one piece, which is 4x1. In this case, I had some 2x1 and I just put them in the middle and glued it with newspaper. Now that was my first mistake. Using newspaper, I found afterwards that when it comes to be split, the dye from the newsprint had gone into the wood, into the beech blocks. I've now got it set up on lathe, and I'm making certain that it is absolutely central. That is really critical, because if you don't, then when you're turning it, when you come to finish it, one of the halves of the box will be slightly bigger than the other. Therefore, your center line of the join will be off center, if that makes sense. So I'm now turning it round, and once it's turned round, I apply the spigot to either end. And as I say, take no notice of the angle of the tools, because I'm literally jumped in and taken a photograph. I'm using a skew just to finish off the profile. I'm putting on the spigot, and I should do that on both ends. And I have a little template, which is my jaw size, so I can check my diameter. And then I've done the 1/3, 2/3. The spigot will be on the left and the spigot's on the right. And the thick line is where I should be parting off the lid. And I'm using a very thin parting tool. I've now taken it off, I've parted it, and I'm now making the top piece of the box which will take the lid. So I'm taking that off first, and then I'm going in now with a parting tool so I don't damage that edge, to hollow out the box. And I'm hollowing out the box with a 3/8 spindle gouge, because on the first one I did, I thought, oh, I'd drill it. And that was another error. Trying to drill with a Forstner bit just splits the joints. So I learned that you can't do that. You must turn the inside. I'm coming in more, and I'm still hollowing out the box. Checking it for size from the top to the bottom with the calipers. Going inside. Now this might look strange. I'm now going to sand it. And when I stop the share, I'll show you what I was using. It's a pair of surgical calipers with sandpaper wrapped around them. and I can go inside the box with no fingers inside the box whatsoever. And I'm using the metal part of the
hemostats.
The depth is 2.5 inches to 3, and you can go that deep in with the calipers, because the calipers are 6 inches long, or forceps more than calipers, forceps. I'll show you a pair at the end, and I just sand out the base inside that bowl, and then sand and polish it the same way, wrapping a piece of paper or towel or whatever around those forceps so that you've got them gripped and you can polish the inside of the bowl. I then take that off and I put the head on the box lid, and I mark up the position there I'm going to cut the insert to go over the box, and just marking it up with a parting tool so that I don't again destroy that. I've hollowed it out, I've made certain it fitted, and I'm now putting the decoration on the inside. Again, don't take any note of the tool angles. And you can see in this particular one, it's a photograph that's the lathe stopped, showing you the 3 different woods, the 2 pieces of each with the centerpiece. Now, of course, you don't have to worry about any dimples or anything in the middle of the box or the lid, because that's going to be removed later on. It's just going to be thrown away. So as long as you make certain that you've gone beyond the beach marks, then you're happy to proceed. There's the box now connected together, and I bring the tailstock up and I just trim it up to make certain everything's working fine. I put the black burn marks on, and then that's not a very good photo. Now, before you split it, I use button jaws. I put the base onto the button jaws and I turn off the spigot, and then I go back. I do the same with the lid as well, and finish off the bottom of the box. I finish off the top of the box, and what I lost was, it was too bright, was the marking of the top of the box, which I'll explain when we come out of the share. So that is what it looked like when I'd split it in the 3 pieces. In fact, the 4, because I'd used 2 individual pieces in the center. And you can see the marking. Now that is a crayon pencil, a brown ground. I used a miniature spiraling tool, texturing tool by Robert Sorby, and then I put a line round using my 3/8 spindle gouge, just putting a little groove in. I painted the brown bit with a brown crayon and the black with a black crayon, and then when you lacquer it, that is all protected. And then once you've taken it off the lathe, you split it and you end up with those configurations. Buffing it afterwards, the white buff has taken away the quality of the photo, but that is buffing. And that's the piece finished, the inside. And as you can see, what I mentioned about the newspaper, on the lid, on the inside of the lid, you'll see a little black line. That is the dye that's gone off of the paper and has gone into the wood. So if I do another one, I should make certain I use either plain paper or brown paper.
Don, hold on a second. How did you glue that together and deal with glue squeeze out?
Right. When I'd done it, I took off all the paper, that was glued onto the two sections. They certainly got back to the wood using 320 grit sandpaper very carefully, checking the line up all the time. Once I'd done that, I put the glue on the joint one side, put them together, locked them together, and then I taped them first of all so that they wouldn't move. And when I taped them, I then put them into my vise and locked it together in the vise to give me the compression for 2 or 3 hours. The glue I wiped off with water from the outside when I'd finished clamping it together. And then on the inside, I took that out afterwards just with a scalpel knife. There wasn't much glue inside. That makes sense?
You're using yellow glue?
White. I'm using Evo stick on this particular project, which I had. It's white wood glue.
Okay. Go on. I'm sorry to have interrupted you, but we needed that important information.
Yeah. Well, that's on the first one I did, the coloured one, I didn't do it with the tape. I just stuck it in the vise, and I had to keep taking it apart because it kept sliding. So I decided that the tape would hold it whilst we clamped it, and it did the job, which I was extremely happy with. And of course, there's the top and bottom, and that's the bottom and the inside, and the bottom and the top. So I'll stop the share wherever that's gone.
Don, I have a question for you. Why did you use, I think I know the answer, but I need to hear it. Why did you glue up the blank originally? Why didn't you use a solid chunk of wood and then cut it apart on, say, a bandsaw and then sand it to fit?
How accurate are you going to bandsaw that, Jim? With an
Well,
oval?
not very. That's why I would sand it.
With the oval.
Gotcha. Okay.
Remembering, I started off with a 4-inch cube. Yeah?
Yeah.
Now, if 4-inch cube, you've got to cut that absolutely accurate to 1.5 inch piece for the two outsides.
Yeah, that'd be very
And
hard
if
to do with a bandsaw.
don't do that, and you decide you're going to put it on a sanding machine, how much are you going to take off of each side to make them absolutely equal? So by using the scrap piece of wood in the middle, glued with paper, when you remove that, your sizes are what you've made them on the turning, as long as you're dead center. Okay?
Yeah, he's right. He's absolutely right. I've tried to do things like that on the bandsaw, and it's almost impossible. Where the way Don is talking is the only way I know to do that accurately.
Yeah.
You saved me, Don. I would have done the chunk and then tried to bandsaw and go, oh crap, I can't do it.
And then, as I say, on the lid, this was done with a texturing tool, the miniature texturing tool, as a round, and then it was just literally a wax crayon pencil, colouring pencil, and also in the black. And it's also, I don't know if you can see, it's slightly domed. It's not flat like the base of that one, which is slightly concaved. This one is slightly convexed. And then it fits together like so. The calipers are sprung loaded.
Oh, with the curved end. Those are hemostats.
Yeah, whatever. And you put your paper in, you lock it in place, you twist it round, and then you can use it.
Yeah.
With the paper. And what the beauty of it is, you still got 5 fingers when you're finished. And the little template you saw me using to get my spigot size. This one's for my pullwood, and that one is for my Vic mark. So when I'm sizing, I don't have to keep going to a pair of calipers and checking. I just come up and pick this up, or I'm using the pullwood, and I check it for my spigot size.
I have two questions about that. Where do you keep that thing?
That sits right on top of my lathe, because on my lathe I have, which is a pullwood, it has a flat platform on the top which is locked down on the main body with 4 Allen screws, and it's about 18 inches by 9 inches flat with a rubber mat on top, and that literally sits on top of there. So
And
in the
so,
moment doing anything, pick it up and away we go.
Your chucks need to be so exact to that you can't just eyeball it? I just eyeball 2 inches and I'm always pretty close.
I could do that. It depends what you're looking for, how big it is. I'm a true believer in looking at your chuck and getting the ultimate circle of your jaws. Because if you don't, what I found when I first started this was that you could be only catching on the 8 corners of the jaws.
Yeah.
And you haven't got a real good firm grip. You need to have that fairly constant circles so that when you're in the chuck, you're 98% got the whole of your jaws mechanism gripping that wood.
No, that's partly a function of the chucks you're using. The chucks I'm using, which are the cheap one-way ones, that corner that would dig into the wood is curved. And so in the wood jaw chucks that I've made on blank jaws, I curve that corner off. So that gives me a greater range that I can grip it very, very close to to a total grip versus just the 4 corner points.
Yeah. I think if you're doing something small, I don't think it would matter. But if you're making something fairly big, the better the grip, the safer you feel.
Yeah. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, go ahead. You were going to show us something else? Did you have something else you were going to show?
No, it was just that, except I've got rather a big contract on at the moment. I would just show you. I have here.
Holy smokes.
A piece of glass. And I've got to make a plinth for it.
Well, we'll look forward to seeing what you do.
And I'll show you the plinth next week when it's all finished. I'll show you some photographs.
Hey, Don.
Stuart's got something to say. I see Stuart's just come on.
We're going to go to Stewart next. Thanks very much, Don.
Okay, thanks, John. Thanks, everyone.
Good morning, Stewart.
Good morning. Hi. Yeah, I showed you last time I was, last time not on here, but I didn't speak last time I was on here, the routing jig. I wanted to show some of the stuff I've done with it, because a lot of people use it to make geometric lattice things, and I don't do symmetry, as I think I told you, but I can show you just a quick flash of this. This is a bowl that I haven't quite got the back done yet, but you can see it's not symmetrical. Oh, yeah, I'll put it there in front of me. And it's the nicest thing I've ever made. I'm just very, very happy with this.
Well, just a second. Come back with that for a second.
Yeah.
I see the smooth surface that's painted blue, but the red or the inner side parts, what are they textured up and down, or?
Yeah, I can get you some.
Well, it looks like pyrography, I'm betting, with the duck's eye things or something like that.
Yes, I mean the pyrography takes a long time. It's here are some pictures of it. After I've just dropped it, better to show you the pictures, I guess.
That's a lot of airbrushing.
I'll bring you in. This is all done with the pyrography took about 3 or 4 hours in the background layer. The colouring is done with paintbrushes and spirit stains, and what I like about using the spirit stains is building up that color that's, got washes of color. It's got depth and it's got movement in it. So it actually started off as yellow and blue, but I kept working into the yellow, and I like having the different layers. I'll get you a picture of got a few pictures of the whole thing. There we go. So you can sort of see it. And this is something that I've made for a Wizardry in Wood, an event that happens in the UK every 4 years. I was invited to put something in, and I thought my normal run of wide-rimmed things needed a bit more, needed to be a bit better than that.
When you said you hadn't finished with the bottom, what's going to happen to the bottom that you haven't done?
The bottom will have pyrography around the holes, and then it will move into it'll have a band of orange and a band of blue, and then the base of the bowl part will be pyrographed with texture on to kind of reflect the different levels that I've got on the top surface.
You won't be going back on the lathe with this, though.
No. The scariest thing was putting this blue rim. I'd coloured it black and it didn't look good at all. The surface wasn't great. I had to put it back on the lathe just to turn that after I'd done all of the colouring and the pyrography on it, and that was a little bit, heart
What did
in
you
mouth
do? How did you hold it? Did you make a jam chuck, or what did you do?
No, because the back has got some grooves in it. I was able to grip it on those grooves, and so I put it in a chuck. I wanted to be really sure that it was secure, and then it was sort of slow turning, and then once that was done, it was like, phew, breathe a sigh of relief. I've done something similar that I'm going to bring to the AAW symposium. But this one doesn't have any piercing on it. I mean, the amount of time that took as well, and the shaping of it was a bit too much. But I can show you the sort of the color build up and how it starts with, looking quite plain when you get a bit of color on. But I think it definitely gains from having more color.
Well, do you
worked onto the surface.
Work this out on scrap first, or how do you manage doing this? I mean, you've got the yellow color on. Do you then have a test palette for the orange, or are you just going right to it on the piece?
I just go right to it. Sort of cut. I do the cutting by eye. Sort of have a rough idea of what I want to do, and then sort of go to it. I've got a slight variation on it, which is to try and put it on the outside of a bowl, which I've got some pictures of up here, which I'm not as happy about. I've got the bowl here in front of me. I think these segments they're a bit too thick. I think they need to be thinner.
I'm assuming you're using a router jig to cut those slots and stuff.
Yes, I am. I'm using a router jig, and I was trying to do it. I'll just move the wood round by hand, move the router, and on this picture here, I don't think the mouse picked up. My wife likes the fact that the channels sort of have a bit of a slant, a bit of movement in them, where the wood's slid against the rotation of the router.
But you can't.
It's a bit more of a handmade look, but
you can't do that on the outside of a curved surface, or you can, but you aren't fit up for that yet.
I could have used my indexing plate and locked some of the movement, but what I've done for the up and down, but for the ones where I have to turn the wood to cut the horizontal slots, that's where I've got something that I can fix the router into place. I bought a little cheap XY machinist table that I can use to screw on.
But your thing, the way you are set up, you couldn't do that on the surface of a curved bowl shape. You have to be a straight shape like that. Is that right, or am I not thinking about it right?
No, I can do it on the straight on a curved surface. But it's getting the horizontal ones in is the tricky bit, because I've got the wood that I have to move the wood, and I was just holding the router in place by hand, which wasn't strong enough for the the rotational force of the cutter against the side of the wood I'm moving, and I'll just move everything along and give you these nice little slopes.
Well, that would be you like the irregular motions. That would give you some pretty irregular motions.
Yeah, it has. It's given quite irregular, but I think it gives you something more usable, which I thought might appeal to you a bit more, John, rather than a tiny little hole in the middle for a hard-boiled egg or something.
Well, can you put guacamole in that?
This one, you could put guacamole in this one. Yes, it passes the guacamole test.
Hey,
What's the wood?
Stewart.
What's the wood?
Sycamore and beech.
Sycamore is an awful lot like maple, I think.
Yes,
We have sycamore here,
yeah.
Hey, Stewart.
Reflex.
If you've got the XY cross slide, one of the things that we use in the ornamental turning community would really be useful for you is a drilling spindle. And it's much like a router, but it's more designed to be held in that cross slide. And you could either have a motor on it or have an overhead drive, which I'd recommend overhead drive. Those are easy.
All right. A drilling spindle. I shall look into those.
You could have a little battery trim router right on that thing, just mounted right on it.
But you could, then have the cutter fixed in place, and then you could hand rotate the wood however you wanted, or you could move the cutter left or right, and do a combination of both.
Ah, right. Okay.
Yeah.
I did see someone demonstrating a Rose engine, and I think, oh no, I'm going to get into something else here. The slope is too slippery.
That's a long slope, that one.
Yes, absolutely.
You can actually carve down around a bowl. Like if you turn a more traditional rounded bottom bowl, you can carve down through the router.
Yes. I'll put a link in the chat to the video of the making of the first one I showed you.
Great.
But yes, you can limit the depth. If this is the router cutter, you put a wooden collar around it, and then that will ride on the surface of the wood, so it'll follow the shape.
I was wondering how you tracked it. That's what I was wondering. Yeah,
and a lot of it by hand, but this one, this is a work in progress. So when you see this next time, it should look a bit different, but it'll be the biggest one I've done. So that might make it to the AAW as well, if any of you are going. Thank you.
Hey, Stewart, I posted a link to the OT Book of Knowledge, and it has that item about what is a drill scope.
Thanks, Rich.
Sure.
I should look it up.
I actually put a link up to your video on my best decorative bowl ever too. That was great. That was a great video. I really
Thank you, Ted. I saw your comment this morning. Thank you.
Anybody else? Comments for Stewart?
I have something.
Yep.
Am I on?
I can't see who it is.
Michael Grinny.
Okay, just keep talking and you'll pop up. We'll get it.
Okay. I see myself up there. It says,
I'm going to spotlight you.
Okay, there we go. I was at a craft show. Well, first of all, I want to say I've got two hard acts to follow. Those guys were great. But I was at a craft show out in Arizona, and I saw this guy turning some wood turnings that I hadn't seen before. And I asked him if he would teach me how to do it.
Hold it up a little more, a couple inches higher. No, closer to your face. No closer to us. Take it back away, back towards you. There you go. We can see it now. Thank you.
This is probably my most difficult piece I've ever turned. It's a piece of Burl, and all it is a slice of Burl. So it's very thin, probably not much more than an inch, if that. This is the back side of it.
So those are all connected, right?
Yes, they're all connected. It's all one piece.
And so it's all on different centers?
Yes, actually probably just two centers, front center and a back center.
And so how are you holding the work to do that?
Good question. We used a piece of plywood, and because it's Burl, we screwed it in at the four corners. and the holes were so small you can't really see them, so I didn't bother to plug the holes. So it was just mounted on a piece of plywood on the lathe, and then we used 2 different centers.
So you're just turning into it. The plywood disc is your faceplate, really, and you're supporting it right out to the edge.
Correct. And this truly is one piece I've done where you really, really, really have to know when to stop. And ask me why I know that. But it was my most difficult piece, but it's probably my most prized piece. I'm most proud of this one because of the difficult level of getting it just right. Also, this is my second time viewing. I think I was on last week, and I see Mike Pieces on the channel, and I just want to give him a shout out. He's been the inspiration for a lot of my turnings, and I watch a lot of his YouTube videos. So thanks, Mike.
Questions for Michael? Thanks a lot, Michael.
There's a whole series of questions. It would be lovely to see the various steps, just still pictures, if you did, Michael, because then we can understand what order you did them in and stuff like that. So
I know that would be great. I did this probably about 12, 15 years ago, and I'm not very techno. I don't know how to get things up on the screen.
Okay.
And I at that time, I didn't take any pictures. I do nowadays, but back then I wasn't taking any pictures.
Are you still actively turning, making things like that?
Yes, I haven't made one of these for a long time, but yeah, no, I'm still actively turning. Basically bowls, hollow forms, things like that.
And what kind of lathe are you on?
I've just got a jet lathe.
And where do you live?
I started on the shopsmith.
Where do you live?
I live in Jackson, excuse me, I belong to the Jacksonville, Florida Northeast Woodturners, but I live in St. Augustine, Florida. But I spend my summers in Minnesota, so I'm in Minnesota right now.
So where's your shop? Which end of that is your shop?
I have one in both places. Jet lathes in both places. I can't be without that stuff.
You have a finish on that?
Yeah, but I don't recollect what exactly it is. It would be probably just something very simple because it doesn't have a high sheen or anything. It's probably maybe just an oil finish or something.
Yeah, it looks matte from the video.
Pretty matte.
What burl was it again? What burl was it?
Good question. I don't remember. It would probably be a southwestern wood.
Well, thank you very much, Michael.
Sure.
Nice to
Thank
see
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm going to pull the spotlight off you just to look at the whole screen again for a minute here. And well, we say goodbye. It's 11 o'clock. See you all next week.
Thank you.
Wood shop.